The Ogres are pretty much the new Warriors of Chaos. They launched alongside Warhammer 3 as the pre-order DLC, and true to the curse, they are pretty much terrible. Limited immobile camps, pitifully shallow mechanics, and a campaign so devoid of fun you might as well just play Norska. But the Great Ogre Haul is here to change things and pull the Ogres from their Great Maw of sadness all the way to the peaks of, well, being a real faction. But how does it all actually work in game? Let's take a look and find out. First up are their camps. Before, camps were placed and stayed exactly where they are all game long. This made placing them into an incredibly stressful decision as you wanted to put them somewhere useful for the long term, but in a game like Warhammer 3, things can move so fast that the best location right now will be extremely inconvenient in a few turns' time. Add on the fact that you can only recruit your late game units from these camps, and it meant you'd regularly be slogging halfway across the map just to get an army that had some halfway decent units in it. With the mod, they can now move about 25% of the distance of a normal army, but still, this small change allows them to follow your armies around the map and always be contributing value instead of being stuck in place. Before, I was always reluctant to really invest in a camp since I'd be turns of forced marching away from it before I knew it. Now, I don't mind building one up to max and giving it a hefty army to defend it since it'll stay with me and be useful for a much longer period of time. They're also a lot harder to take down as the main camp building provides some powerful passives and abilities to make them much tougher targets. Add on the fact they're now led by camp boss lords with their own skill tree, including a bespoke blue line full of unique bonuses, and they are a real force to be reckoned with that you'll be working on for the whole game. They still can't attack settlements or armies, but they can provide a bunch of support and crawl around the map to get help wherever needed. However, if you need support in finding cheap games, then you need instant gaming. I wanted to hop back into Game Pass to get a load of free items in Overwatch 2, because that game will not unhook its claws from me no matter how many awful updates it gets. Instead of paying £15 per month, I paid £22 for 3 months and saved myself millions. Or something. I won't do the maths, you can't make me. Check out Instant Gaming at the link below and save yourself some cash whenever you buy some games. Moving on to meat, and meat in the base game is pretty dull. You collect it, and as long as you aren't at literally 0, your army has no positive or negative effects. It can be used before battles for some very minor effects to charge en masse, or sacrificed to the Great Maw for a choice of non-impactful buffs. Overall, it's extremely lackluster. Now the levels of meat in each of your armies bring more impactful effects. High and low levels allow you to optimize your army for a different playstyle, whether that's fast and light or slow and heavy. The pre-battle feasts are now a lot more impactful, bringing new effects like spell resistance, regeneration, and much more. You can also choose to sacrifice much more meat at once to both adjust your meat levels for your desired effects and get much more powerful bonuses in the following battle. Sacrifices to the Maw are also much more expensive, but are also much more rewarding, allowing you to now get more value for your armies, but also use these to shift your meat levels to the desired effects. These are a minor change, but they really make meat something worth thinking about instead of a mechanic that you basically ignore. Big names is one of the most nothing mechanics in the base game. You essentially have these minor objectives to complete, and once you do, you can choose from one of 4 very minor effects to have on your lords and heroes. It's kind of like traits that all factions have access to, but worse. Normally, you just pick one and stick with it for the entire game since they don't really have that much impact. This mod keeps most things the same but rebalances the names to be a little bit more impactful. Certain names now have downsides alongside buffs to their existing upsides to make them more interesting to switch between. On the whole, it's the same mechanic, but now it just has a little bit more thought put into it. Typical of any Total War faction, the Ogre tech tree is very bloated and poorly laid out, making it a slog to get through. This mod simplifies things, merging certain text together to give the tree more of a focus. You have pairs of text that adjust different areas of the game, like certain unit stats, infrastructure, and more. Once you've completed a certain number of texts in that group, you can start the next camp tech to increase your capacity and unlock the next tier of research. It just makes the thing a whole lot easier to get through and means you can put some thought into it instead of just rushing to the camp text to take the quickest route possible. Plus, with the new moving camps, it's less essential to get all the camps, so you can really take your time a bit more. As for the rest, there's also a bunch of reworks to skills, items, and new Ogre-specific landmarks, as well as a massive amount of rebalancing to basically everything. You may be surprised or disappointed that there are no new units added, but there are several roster changes to rebalance certain units to bring them up in power just a bit. If you want to read the full list of every single change, you can find the changelog on the mod page, but the general idea is to cover their bases and make them feel like more complete of a faction. Now some closing thoughts and my overall review of this mod. This overhaul may not seem like it's doing a lot, but that's really because the Ogres don't need a massive amount of changes to feel like a real faction. The ability to move camps makes this mod worth it alone, as it changes up how they play and makes them so much more fun and less of a chore. It's such an astronomically simple idea that I can't believe CA didn't do it on day one, but hopefully they at least managed to think of it in time for the DLC release. Add on the camps having lords to lead them and defend, and they're immediately like 80% better. I mean, we had black arcs before ogre camps, so why didn't they just copy that homework when it's essentially the same thing on land? I don't know, but that's CA for you. Anyway, outside of camps, the rest of the changes range from extremely good to okay. The meat changes are really some of the best in the entire game. Having levels of bonuses depending on the level of meat is such a great idea and makes managing it into something I actually pay attention to. The increased bonuses from the Maw and pre-battle feasts are again something worth investing in, so I'm actively thinking about farming meat to save up for that big battle. The big names rebalance is nice for some more interesting effects, but I just wish they'd make them into traits like the base game. Why can we only have one big name at a time when Greece's full lore name has about 13 in it? It makes no sense to me, and I have to imagine this change was beyond the scope of the mod, as it seems like a bit of a slam dunk. The tech tree changes, even though they're not all that fun to look at, are some of the best changes I've seen to a faction. The simplification of the different areas of the tree let you get more camps moving faster without compromising on picking up techs you want to improve your different units. Add on the fact that you may not always need as many camps as possible, so you can also choose to take your time, and it makes these new changes work excellently no matter your playstyle. Contracts is one area of the faction that saw no changes, which was a little bit disappointing. These are some truly random missions that just get you into more trouble than they are worth and give you pitiful rewards for the efforts required. I'm not a mod maker, so I don't know how hard it will be to change this, but simply multiplying the rewards by like 5 would at the very least make the missions worth the effort, even if they are still all over the place. Still, on the whole, the Ogre Haul takes one of the worst factions in the game and brings them to a point where they are completely playable. Sure, there are still some areas that need work, but with the Ogre rework accompanying their DLC on the horizon, I wouldn't blame the mod makers if they sit back on their laurels until they know where they stand. Still, if you want to play the Ogres but don't want to wait for the rework, this is probably an essential pickup. And that is everything I have on the Ogre Haul mod. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the mod alongside any you'd like me to take a look at. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 videos, then check out this one on how to beat every single unit in the game.